Hi guys! Today we'll be recapping a story called A Saint Who Was Adopted by the Grand Duke. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot. Enjoy! On a glitzy, gloomy night in the temple, as three saints make their way toward what appears to be a jail, Dinah, a prisoner, appears to be in great discomfort as she has linen straps over her lips, and both wrists are bound in a magic chain. Based on her appearance, she looks deeply helpless, from her hair so messed up to her clothes full of scratches and her skin covered with bruises. What a painful sight! Saint Raphael approaches Dinah with her hair in braids and asks for her help. She has a look of disappointment in her eyes, which are like daggers aimed directly at Dinah. Meanwhile, the horror in Dinah's eyes immediately flashes as she realizes what she means by those threatening eyes. Turns out she's dismayed by the smaller amount of blood she obtained and threatens to cut her skin deeper for more. She's acting like a vampire who's hungry for blood. Without warning, Khalid, the male saint, drops to his knees and offers to do the honor of cutting off the captive's hand to draw more blood. Dinah's eyes briefly flash with horror as she realizes that Khalid has betrayed her. The pain Dinah experiences is terrible. With success, Saint Raphael sips the blood that Khalid took from Dinah's hand. Saint Raphael feels Dinah's blood stream down her throat, and she feels the immense holy power. As soon as she finally gets what she desires, she leaves, leaving Dinah in excruciating pain. In the Austin Empire, under the system of gods, the authority of saints and emperors was balanced. During a time of destruction and epidemics, the world saw no hope. However, Governor Espithos' presence ignited hope, leading to a golden age of over 100 years of peace and light, with a temple dedicated to a saint. This golden age symbolized the power of the saints. Returning to the present, three female servants enter the cell where Dinah is tied up. One of them is Annie, a newbie who can't believe what she sees in front of her. The moment hers and Dinah's eyes meet, Dinah grabs this opportunity to speak to her through her head, convincing her to free her out. Annie walks closer, then unties the strap in Dinah's mouth. Then the next thing they know, she bites her tongue to death. It is her 14th death. A lonely and pathetic death. Once again, Dinah finds herself back to the time before the tragic events. Her 15th regression. How pathetic, right? The young Raphael calls her in a concerned voice upon seeing her in a worse state, but her words only saddens Dinah. Remembering how she's being treated by Raphael every time, it leads her to end her life due to intense torture. The young Raphael calls her a friend, when in fact, soon enough, she will just deny their friendship while flashing those evil eyes of hers. In her previous lives, she remembers how she begged for her life in front of Raphael, who seemed to be unbothered by her pleading expression. She couldn't believe it when Raphael admitted that she never thought of Dinah as a friend. Surprised, tears rolled down Dinah's face as soon as she heard those painful words that felt like daggers stabbing on her chest. The worst betrayal a friend could ever feel. The young Raphael continues to comfort Dinah and convinces her to take a break. Everyone in the temple is bewildered when they discover that Raphael is talking to someone who is on a different level compared to her. Then, a priestess who seems annoyed by her presence scolds her. The whispers of insults echo throughout the entire palace as Dinah proceeds to enter inside her room. In full agony and exhaustion, she shows a feeling of distress as she gasps at the reality of coming back to life. Dinah is too tired to repeat the devastation all over again when all she wants is death. Upon checking her diary, she discovers that she has returned to the year 381, when on her previous returns, she always came back every year in 382. Has something changed? Or perhaps this might be her last regression? She repeatedly reminds herself that escaping is impossible, and despite multiple attempts, she remains trapped in a hellish fate. So she silently pleads with tears rolling down her face while carrying a knife to cut herself. But to her disappointment, the wound once again heals by itself because of her sacred power. Dinah rushes outside and stands in front of the governor's statue. This brings her to the past when she met the priest of the temple while seeking food. He offered her a room to stay, and she no longer starved at every meal. Dinah was beyond grateful because the room was the first place she felt warmth, but in the end, she lost everything. Back in the present, she questions the statue in front of her as to why she was given holy power. She begs for it to be taken away from her. Then all of a sudden, hope appears in her eyes as she remembers that there's a celebration at that time of the year. Every year, the temple festival is held, and Dinah hatches an idea to attend because the Archduke de Haine Teresia, a deranged assassin obsessed with war and slaughter, is expected to be present. She anticipates facing execution if she attempts to attack someone of his caliber. This will be her chance to die. Due to the healing effects of the holy power, Dinah cannot die alone. She must face death at the hands of the monstrous Archduke. With a desperate look, she begins to plan in her mind when suddenly, a male with a charming smile calls her name. He is Khalid, the son of a famous aristocrat and everyone's favorite. Despite liking him, Dinah's affection fades as she recalls how Khalid became the Holy Knight of Raffian and betrayed her by not saving her from the countless repeated hells. He notices her reaction and becomes confused as Dinah leaves him wondering. Meanwhile, Ben Teresia's appearance captivates the maid's attention. With a seductive look, he can entice anyone he meets. Possessing extensive knowledge, he has been by the Archduke's side for 10 years. In the Archduke's abode, he tries to convince Archduke Dehane Teresia about the outfit he's wearing. But no matter how hard he tries, the Highness is stubborn enough to stick with the black outfit despite the event's white theme. Before the two of them head out, two cheerful kids call out to them. Judy Teresia and Dennis Teresia are twins, the Archduke's children. The Archduke promises to buy a bunch of things when he returns, asking for their wishes. Dennis wants a limited edition Voice of the Ruler, but surprisingly, his brother Judy wishes for a little sister. Judy is obviously the nerdy type. All of them are left dumbfounded by Judy's sudden outburst. He is jealous because he's the only one who doesn't have a younger sister among his friends. Stressed, the Archduke thinks his son is just pulling a prank, but this just makes Judy sulk. Archduke Teresia tries to comfort his son and explains to him why it's impossible for him to have a little sister since they don't have a mother. Well, he has a point. How could you produce a child without a partner, right? Instead, he promises to give him a maid of his son's age, but not a sister. However, Dennis suggests a way, leaving his dad doomed with no choice. What's his suggestion? Well, an adoption. While riding a carriage, Ben and the Archduke are talking about Judy's special request a while ago. The Archduke decides to reconsider his son's request, since he has been used to giving the kids all they wanted so that they do not feel their mother's absence. He had no idea, though, that his children were wary of everything, since they were raised without any attachment because their father's love had given them worldly possessions, but never the warmth of his affection. He couldn't even give them his whole attention, so how could he grant them a sister? Such material things are nothing compared to a family's bond. But thinking positively, bringing a good child could be an opportunity to teach the twins about bonds. So with firmness in his voice, the Archduke finally decides to find a place to adopt a child. Moving on to the temple, the festival begins. All of the people in higher positions are seated far beyond Dinah's reach, including the Archduke. It's almost impossible to talk to him, let alone assassinate him. Dinah's plans are interrupted by a noble's sudden command. She tries to refuse, but the noble only gets aggressive in return. In the past, she would have done what she was told without saying anything, but this time, she's desperate enough to refuse their order. All of the insults come out of the noble's mouth, leaving Dinah in despair since she doesn't want to become an orphan. Later on, she notices that the Duke is no longer in his chair. She becomes uneasy, not because of the continuous insults from the nobles, but the fear of losing sight of the Duke. These nobles are getting on my nerves. To prevent Dinah from moving anywhere, one of them takes hold of her arm. The priestesses then arrive to scold them, but Dinah feels forced to follow her orders. She can't seem to find the Duke anywhere, so she starts to get anxious that he could be leaving the temple. She then makes the decision to go seek him outside the temple, and when she does, she spots the Duke standing next to two of his guards. She feels more hopeful, but her self-doubt grows. She tries to call him out of desperation, but her expression is filled with terror. The black aura emanating from the Archduke smacks of chaos and authority as he confronts her. She begs to speak with him for a little while, but her mind is already debating whether to approach him. Then, she grabs her knife and proceeds to attack him, but as expected, the Duke is too quick and foils the plot. With a knife aimed at her, he demands as to who sent her while Dinah looks on in terror. Life flashes in front of Dinah, and she recalls how her fate is eternal and her life of misery repeats because finally the time has come for her death. Or as she thought. The knife points directly at her, but instead of fear, there's eagerness in her eyes. The thought of death excites her. This makes the Duke confused, seeing a child wanting to be killed. It's weird, but she's that desperate. She then grabs his hand holding the knife to proceed cutting her neck. But once again, disappointment lingers as she realizes that she's still alive. Meanwhile, the Duke remains curious as to who sent her that she's willing to risk her life. He threatens to kill her if she won't say a word. So as someone who wants to die, Dinah remains silent. The Duke, being impatient, commands his guards to bring her back to the temple, but this only makes Dinah tremble in fear. She begs him to never return her and just to kill her instead. She starts bursting into tears, looking so helpless with desperation and fear in her eyes. Dinah looks so awful, poor thing. The Duke feels intrigued and commands the guards to let her go. He then approaches the poor girl and asks about her age, in which she responds. Dinah is a 12-year-old girl with no parents and living a hellish life. He comes closer and fixes the hair covering her pleading eyes. All of a sudden, he gives her a choice to be his daughter if she really doesn't want to go back to the temple. In tears, Dinah becomes speechless. She wonders how someone can adopt an orphan like her, and as she finds out, it's quite unbelievable. As it happens, the Duke has been seeking for a child to adopt, and he appears to think Dinah is a good fit. She will then become the noblest child. Hearing these words seem like music to her ears. Her hope against the cruelty of the temple. Because this is her only chance to escape her terrible destiny, she consents to let him adopt her. Meanwhile, the Duke recalls how she behaved some time ago, as he is glancing at his helpless child. When he addresses her by name, Dinah pauses, appreciating that someone is interested in knowing her name when no one has ever asked before. Weirdly enough, Dinah thinks of the Duke's eerie yet sincere smile as being affectionate. To finish the adoption process, it will take 5 days. Only then she'd be free and can die. The adoption procedure for Dinah commences, and the Duke initiates a conversation with the 2 temple priests. Upon realizing that the child the Duke wishes to adopt is an orphan living in a slum, the 2 priests make sure the Duke does not select the least desirable option and instead attempt to present a more qualified one. Their response triggers the Duke's anger, and he threatens to cut their tongues off if they continue to oppose his choice. Noticing the escalating anger from His Highness, Ben immediately steps forward to proceed with bribing the 2 greedy priests. How disgusting! Ben and the Duke leave the temple, leaving the greedy priests in great delight. It's supposed to be a donation, but since they're hungry for money, the 2 priests decide to split it in half for them to share instead of donating it to the temple. Meanwhile, Dinah's wound from her encounter with the Duke is finally healed. She's in her room as she begins to discern the reality of her not being able to leave because of her power. Everything just seems so unreal, and expecting anything might hurt her in the end. She becomes increasingly concerned as she considers how the Archduke's kids, who are the noblest children, who would grow up to be prejudiced like other children of great status. She already anticipates being abused due to her status as an orphan. Dinah, poor little thing. It doesn't matter that they abused her, though. All she ever wanted was a means to die. The day comes when Dinah is about to leave the temple. The priestess mentions reminders. She emphasizes how Dinah has to live on her own the moment the Duke decides to abandon her since she no longer belongs to the temple. Along the way, they happen to cross paths with Raffian, who seems confused about the early stroll of the 2. Raffian's jolly smile slowly fades as soon as she hears about Dinah going to the Archduke's house. I don't know if it's jealousy or greed. Either way, she's such a brat. Raffian proceeds to grab Dinah and asks the priestess for permission to bid her goodbye. She then brings Dinah somewhere in the place with full curiosity, provoking the poor girl with her questions. She's showing her true colors already? With her actions, she no longer pretends to be a fake and abusive friend. Before, she used to manipulate Dinah in order for her to stay in the temple, but Dinah will no longer be enticed by her pretension. Dinah's fist clenches when she remembers how Raffian pushes her into this hellish life, yet acts as a friend. Before they part ways, Dinah gives her a farewell gift. Everything she says contradicts her own desires, and that is for Raffian to be immersed in great despair. And we will surely witness Raffian's downfall. A sudden flashback occurs at the time when Irene, the Duke's wife, was staring at the bright stars in the sky. The mesmerizing stars catched her attention, and she mentioned how she wanted to name her daughter after a star. Going back to the present, Dinah finally steps out from the door of the place where her hellish fate resides. In that temple, she has been abandoned and betrayed multiple times in every life. A life that starts all over again when she dies, where the same pain is repeated. But finally, this time she will no longer be trapped in that same temple that torments her precious life for several years. Minutes after walking, Ben welcomes her while standing beside a luxury wagon. There's an amusement in her eyes as she's getting the royal treatment for the first time. Of course, Dinah isn't used to this kind of treatment, but Ben reminds her that she will be the only daughter of the Archduke, so her behavior is a family honor. By that, everything sinks in. including the fact that she's an adopted daughter of the Archduke. She enters the wagon, and the presence of the Duke welcomes her. However, Dinah is seated far away, so this makes him wonder if she's uncomfortable. Then his eyes gaze on the old bag she brought. Dinah admits that it's all that she has, so the Duke decides to buy her more things in the future. She kindly refuses his offer, so he thinks that maybe she'll become more comfortable if she asks for what she wants, just like Judy, since he doesn't know what to give her. But there's one thing that he wants to give her: a name. Reminiscing about the past conversation with his wife, he is reminded that if ever they'd be blessed by a daughter, she'd name her Aster, meaning a child who shines like stars. No, such a beautiful name for a pretty girl. She is reluctant to accept it at first, finding it ironic that she has that name given when she has spent her whole existence in the dark. However, eventually she comes to appreciate its lovely meaning. Later on, Dinah falls asleep, and upon looking at her, the Duke recalls those wary eyes when they first met, but now she's sleeping soundly. The Duke notices that her clothes are all messed up. Even a rug seems far better than her clothes. He clenches his fists, blaming the corrupt priests at the temple for treating this girl poorly. And so, the Duke orders Ben to go to Udar, a branded clothing store. In her dream, Aster and a young boy were seated beneath a tree. They started talking when he asked her about her interactions with the Grand Duke. As their talk drew closer, he also expressed concern for her well-being. However, the Grand Duke had just woken her up. Daewon informs her that they are going to the Tercia territory to buy new clothes. He declares that she needs to have a wider variety of clothing for the future. After a while, they arrive at the clothing store. Aster is accompanied by Daewon and Ben. The store's owner, Christian, welcomes them as they arrive. Daewon also seizes the chance to advise the woman on Aster's wardrobe choices. Christian observes that Aster is uncomfortable, so she refrains from mentioning anything about her appearance that would upset her. Christian leans towards Aster, asking about her name, but before Aster can respond, Daewon intervenes and informs Christian of her new name, Aster. When Daewon looks at Aster with a considerate gesture, he assures that they will wait for her. He encourages Aster to take her time and choose the clothes that she wants. Following Christian's directions, Aster is led to a room inside the store and told to wait. She is then given a catalog and persuaded to choose her favorite dresses. But before that, she asks if it's okay to sit on an expensive chair, to which Christian responds affirmatively, making her realize that she's no longer in the temple and her life is about to change. No, baby girl, you'll never go back to that place because we will protect you at all costs. Christian observes Aster with curiosity and apprehension about strange circumstances. However, Aster clings to the catalog that she hasn't yet opened. Nevertheless, Christian makes the decision to give Aster the selected clothing. When Aster views the clothes, she makes an awestruck reaction. Christian proudly shows the store's unique creations as they try with different styles. Aster weighs her options after thinking about the clothing options. However, Christian notices Aster's little face and gives her astute advice on what style would work best. As Christian works her magic on Aster, she says that Aster need not worry about anything and should leave everything to her. When they're done, Aster seeks the opinion of Daewon about her appearance. Daewon, on the other hand, upon seeing Aster, is immediately struck by her resemblance to Irene and what their daughter would look like if they had one. He even claims that the dress that Aster wears suits her perfectly. I agree, she looks really cute, but the first time I saw Irene reminded me of Aster too. The simple act of complimenting the dress makes her happy. Daewon tells Christian if she has other sizes to fit for Aster, to which she responds positively. Aster then tries on another dress, and her attractiveness becomes even more radiant. Daewon turns to Ben and tells him to go get the dresses that Aster has tried on. Then he tells Christian to throw away Aster's old clothes as they prepare to leave. Meanwhile, Aster can't believe it, and it still feels like a dream to her. As soon as they arrive at the mansion, Daewon tells Aster that it will be her new home. But Aster has a bad feeling about the Duke's twin sons. As soon as they arrive at the mansion, they are greeted by the staff, and Delbert feels nervous and unprepared for the presence of many people. As Delbert conveys Daewon's request for the twins to come downstairs, Judy and Dennis arrive and address Daewon as Dad. Judy asks about Aster, jokingly calling her a brat after noticing her by Daewon's side. Dennis and Aster exchange meaningful looks during the conversation, and Daewon tells the twins that Aster is now their sister. As the news sinks in, Judy merely asks if she's younger than him. Judy looks across to Daewon and wonders how he got Aster so fast. Dennis replies that Aster has been adopted by their father and playfully pinches Judy, calling him an idiot. She then informs Judy that she was from the temple when he asked her to introduce herself. Judy is shocked by her statement and wonders if Aster had really been hauled out of the temple. But Daewon intervenes, threatening to call his tutor over his actions. After what he heard from his father, Judy decides to leave and assures Aster that they will meet later. However, Daewon stops Judy and instructs him to accompany Aster around the mansion. Judy seemingly counters that he has plans with his friends and gives Dennis the task of giving Aster a tour. However, Judy learns that Dennis is missing and has no choice but to take on the task himself. Afterward, Judy escorts Aster around the mansion. While roaming around, she is struck by the mansion's immense size, but Judy is annoyed by Daewon's request to guide her. On the other hand, her appearance recalls intriguingly of his mother, Irene. Aster pauses abruptly, clearly drawn to one particular chamber, and seems intrigued by it. As she looks at the room, he takes a peek at Aster's curiosity. Aster responds that she will choose another one if she can't use it. There seems no problem to that, but Judy uses this room to sneak out of the mansion. Nevertheless, after a brief hesitation, he allows her to choose the room on one condition. She can use it if she can accompany him to his friend Sebastian, to which she agrees positively. As they continue their tour, they encounter Delbert, saying Daewon wants to meet Aster. A moment later, Aster finds herself seated at a table where her attention is drawn by the delicious foods in front of her. On the other hand, Daewon also ponders if she doesn't like cookies since she isn't touching any of them. Daewon looks so simple yet hot with his hair down. If Aster wants a mother, I swear I'd be the first to volunteer. After signing the document, Daewon then extends her sincere congratulations to Aster on becoming a member of the Tercia family. We're really happy for you, Aster. Noticing her discontent, he gracefully offers her a cookie, gently feeding it to her in an attempt to make her feel at ease. Aster's initial hesitation gives way to a genuine smile as she discovers the tasty treat. Assuring her of his commitment to bringing happiness into her life, he promises that she will never lack anything. That night, Delbert enters the room, announcing that Aster has drifted off to sleep. Seizing the moment with her asleep, he decides to convene a family meeting with the twins. Morning arrives and Aster awakens from her slumber, greeted by the gentle embrace of sunlight. Shortly after, Dorothy, the maid, enters her room. Aster responds politely, confirming that she had slept well. With breakfast approaching, Dorothy offers to help her get ready. Aster graciously accepts the offer, expressing her thanks for Dorothy's kindness. Upon reaching the dining table, Aster notices her tableware is missing, causing a slight disappointment. Just then, Dennis approaches her warmly, inviting her to join them and assuring her that her plates will be ready soon. His words lift her spirits. While at the table, Judy's absence becomes apparent, and Dennis speculates that Judy might have overslept. As they settle in, he engages with Aster, confirming her name, to which she responds positively. I like Dennis right now. He's not as cold as when he first met her. Dennis requests Delbert to pour water for Aster and explains his own morning ritual of drinking water for better blood circulation. He encourages her to establish a morning routine for a healthier start to the day. However, she senses a certain distance from Dennis, realizing that he isn't particularly fond of her. So his unexpected initiation of conversation catches her off guard. On the other hand, Dennis recalls his father's words during a family meeting, emphasizing that it doesn't matter where Aster came from, and they shouldn't tease or mistreat her. Daewon adds that from then on, they should protect Aster as they are now a family. Dennis returns to his senses, considering his father's concern towards Aster. Meanwhile, Aster remarks how tasty the water is since she couldn't drink clean water at the temple. Daewon enters the dining room and warmly greets Aster and Dennis. However, Aster addresses him as Lord, which kinda annoys him. Despite this, he remains patient towards her. Thrilled to be at the table with delicious food, Aster struggles with utensils. Dennis notices and takes the lead, teaching her how to use them, and she quickly catches up with it. The sight puts Daewon at ease regarding Dennis's behavior towards her. After Delbert informs Aster of Judy's arranged meeting in the Havel Garden, she agrees to follow soon. Intrigued by Aster's happiness, Dorothy asks to join, and they head to the beautiful garden. Dorothy, considerate as ever, mentions she prepared a lunchbox. Seated upon a bench, they await Judy's arrival. Despite Aster's anticipation, Judy doesn't show up. Dorothy considers suggesting they return home due to the delay, but Aster insists on waiting. Poor Aster, she's been waiting for a while now. Just then, a young boy arrives, boldly approaching Dorothy and Aster. With a direct question, he asks Aster if she's Judy's younger sister, catching her off guard with the unexpected situation. Aster stammers, questioning Sebastian's identity. In response, he becomes furious, gripping her wrist, insinuating that acknowledging her as Judy's sister might hurt his pride. Despite his hold, she quickly frees herself. Then, he makes an offensive proposition, asking her to pay and offering to double it. What does he mean to pay her double? Does he think that Aster's a servant? Aster stays quiet, so Dorothy steps in, warning Sebastian to stop acting badly or she'll report him. He doesn't believe Aster is Judy's sister because they look different, and he says mean things. Despite Dorothy trying to help, he keeps being mean and leaves. Aster shares with Dorothy how hard it is for her to stand up to Sebastian. Their talk is interrupted by Happy, a dog, making the situation lighter. Meanwhile, Judy is disappointed that the talking bird didn't show up. To be sure if Aster might have left, he goes to the garden. There, he finds Aster and Dorothy talking happily with Happy. He angrily asks Aster why she stayed all day and waited for him. I think it must be the other way around since he suggested meeting her at the garden. Yet swiftly, his frustration transforms, evolving from disappointment to genuine concern. In response to his inquiry, Aster reassures him that his delayed arrival didn't bother her. Aster finds herself taken aback when Judy unexpectedly lifts her onto his back. Initially uncertain, she addresses him as master, but Judy's comforting words quickly ease her apprehension. He suggests adopting the term brother, emphasizing their unique sibling connection. During their return to the mansion, Judy extends an apology for his tardiness, vowing to be more considerate in the future. In turn, Aster offers her own apology, content with the companionship she's found in him. In this moment, she senses a newfound ally in Judy. With a stern tone, Judy advises Aster to place more value on her time and refrain from finding waiting enjoyable. He makes a solemn promise to ensure that no one will make her wait without facing consequences. As they reach the mansion, Delbert notices Judy carrying Aster and rushes to offer assistance. However, Judy stands firm, insisting on keeping her on his back. Meanwhile, Dennis observes these interactions, his expressions revealing a hint of jealousy as he witnesses the growing closeness between Judy and Aster. He's somehow distant towards all of them. I hope he'll grow closer to them too. Once again, Aster dreams of the young boy who's relieved of her improving fever and confesses his deep concern for her illness. Curiosity lingers about the boy, but she abruptly wakes up from her dream. I wonder if this boy is a live character in the novel or just someone in her dream. Upon opening her eyes, the Grand Duke and others are in her room, waiting for her to wake up. Judy asks if she recognizes him, mentioning her fever after returning from the garden and 2 days of unconsciousness. Suddenly, the idea of a saint's awakening crosses her mind. Gathering her thoughts, Aster apologizes to Daewin and Judy. Daewin inquires about her health, assuring her that her fever has lowered. Daewin suggests seeking medical assistance due to her long journey, as Judy offers a teddy bear for comfort. Aster contemplates her illness in connection to the saint's awakening and the boy's impact on her well-being. Dorothy requests to enter Aster's room with the doctor, who conducts an examination. Daewin, observing her vitality reduction, expresses concern. During the assessment, Aster and the doctor share an intense gaze. Does this guy know something? The doctor notes no abnormalities, but mentions Aster's diminished energy, advising Daewin to take care of her. After the doctor leaves, Aster recalls her past experiences at the temple where she faced scornful looks. She apologizes to Daewin, but he reassures her of her well-being in return, emphasizing that they're now a family. Tears are welling up in her eyes, experiencing this kind of warmth like never before. Hours later, Daewin attends to his responsibilities, ensuring his children's safety. Dorothy interrupts him with Ben, delivering news that Aster's condition is getting worse. Daewin rushes to Aster's room, visibly concerned. Aster, with a trembling voice, reveals an overwhelming fear, pleading for an end to her suffering by ending her life. The room falls into heavy silence, leaving everyone shocked. It must be a trauma response or something. In the midst of the heavy rainfall, Raffian sensed Dinah, Aster's real name, and sought her assistance to find relaxation, while Dinah pleaded for her life. Just then, Daewin gently wakes up his daughter to her normal state, asking if she recognizes her surroundings. Initially confused, she wonders if she's still at the shrine, but Daewin reassures her that she's in the Grand Duke's mansion. Regaining composure, Aster apologizes for her behavior, revealing her distressing experiences with Raffian on rainy days. Daewin interrupts, urging her to relax. Curious and concerned about Raffian, Daewin asks Ben about her identity and the traumatic events at the shrine. He then lifts Aster and takes her to bed, promising to stay by her side until the thunderstorms subside. In bed, Daewon discusses past troubles in the story, and Aster doesn't provide detailed answers. He inquires about her fear of thunder, and she admits it had been a long-standing fear. Daewon comforts her, assuring that the mansion is safe and vowing to protect her, instilling a sense of security. Suddenly, Judy visits Aster's room, noticing Daewon's presence. Concerned about her red eyes, Judy suggests sleeping with her until she overcomes her fear of rain. Later, Daewon, who remains dissatisfied and reveals that Aster suffered abuse during her time at the shrine, seeks information about the shrine, particularly about Raphian. She's the reason for Aster's fear. She must be punished. When morning arises, Aster wakes up with a heartwarming sight of Daewon and Judy sleeping beside her. Aw, they really look like a family now. But I see there's still space beside Daewon, so might as well occupy it, right? Just kidding. Days later, Aster observes that Daewon and Judy avoid discussing her fear, likely to spare her from distressing memories. In the main hall, she encounters Dennis reading a book. Intrigued, she inquires about his love for books, and he explains that knowledge empowers him. Their conversation deepens, leading to Dennis inviting Aster for a walk in the garden. As they stroll, Aster realizes the unfamiliar path and admits it's her first time taking it. Dennis stops and apologizes, revealing that the walk from the garden was a ruse. Unlike his brother, he struggles to accept Aster and doesn't consider her his sister, prompting him to delve into her true identity. Oh, I take back my word. Last he was somewhat jealous, but now he's being doubtful. He's so hard to read. In the quietude of the night, Dennis immerses himself in the pages of a book until the hours grow late, signaling it's time to retire. As he traverses the dimly lit corridors toward his chamber, he glimpses Judy wandering pensively. An air of curiosity engulfs him, compelling Dennis to trail Judy, his footsteps echoing in the silent castle. His clandestine journey leads them to Aster's chamber, where Dennis beholds a tranquil scene. The moonlight softly caresses the room, revealing his father and brother serenely asleep alongside Aster. In that poignant moment, Dennis finds himself entangled in contemplation, unraveling the enigma that is Aster. The following day, Dennis uncovers a hidden passage, a portal to a secluded garden where secrets whisper in the rustling leaves. With a mischievous glint in his eye, Dennis proposes utilizing his clandestine pathway for covert escapades. He informs Aster of his impending errands in the village and suggests they embark on this adventure together. Without a second thought, Aster agrees, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. As they emerge on the other side of the clandestine tunnel, Dennis decides to guide Aster towards the vibrant tapestry of life in the nearby village. The lively hustle and bustle captivate Aster's senses, but Dennis, with a pensive demeanor, can't escape the echo of his father's encounter with Aster at the shrine. In a sudden turn, Dennis reveals his intent to leave momentarily for personal obligations. Despite Aster's eagerness to accompany him, Dennis declines, assuring her a swift return. With that promise hanging in the air, Dennis embarks on his journey, leaving Aster to contemplate the mysteries of the village with a lot of strangers around. Is he planning to leave her behind? What if something bad happens to her? In Dennis's absence, a torrent of thoughts flood Aster's mind, weaving a narrative of abandonment and betrayal. She contemplates the intricate web of his intentions, suspecting a premeditated plan to leave her stranded. Lost in the labyrinth of her reflections, her focus abruptly shifts as two men enter her sphere of awareness. Oh no, Dennis isn't around! She's in danger! Their scrutiny fixates on her attire, prompting them to assume her noble lineage. With no visible bodyguards, they misconstrue her vulnerability. However, the unpredictable resounds as Aster utters a startling declaration, insisting on her own demise, rendering their plans futile. In a serendipitous twist, Dennis returns, offering tardy apologies and questioning Aster about her acquaintance with the men. Unbeknownst to them, the unexpected declaration has shifted the dynamics. The men, now aware of Dennis's identity, recoil at the realization that they have trifled with the Tercia family. Faced with the imminent threat, the men attempt to retreat, feebly asserting that their prior statements were mere jests. Dennis, still seething with anger and concern, redirects his focus to Aster. He demands an explanation, seeking clarity on her impulsive actions and the risks she took in his absence. How rude! If you hadn't left her, these two men would not have almost exploited her. Dennis fell into silence after inquiring about Aster's thoughts, then suddenly admitted to deliberately leaving her alone. It turns out Dennis had been keeping an eye on Aster, curious about how she'd react to solitude. His intention was to unveil her true self by intentionally leaving her be. Aster, initially thinking he harbored resentment, was surprised when Dennis explained that he never wished any harm upon her. This revelation sparked Aster's curiosity about Dennis, as he demonstrated care without explicitly expressing his feelings. Is this what we call a nonchalant person? Dennis extends an apology to Aster for his testing her and offers his hand to return home. Aster, surprised and delighted, realizes that Dennis does see her as a sibling and gladly accepts his hand. On a bright blue day in the castle, the family gathers for breakfast. The Grand Duke addresses Dennis's recent recklessness, to which Dennis admits fault and offers his sincere apologies. The fact that Dennis owns up to his mistake makes him a good person. The Grand Duke appreciates Dennis's honesty and tells the twins that they should treat Aster as their own sister. Since the twins' birthday is coming up, the Grand Duke asks for their opinion about what they want on their birthday. Judy wants to have a masquerade party, while Dennis wants to have a book discussion. I don't know how the Grand Duke manages to deal with the twins with their opposite interests. However, the Grand Duke has something in his mind. He takes none of the twins' requests, but rather he wants to introduce Aster to the people since she's already part of the family. Aster seems kinda down since she is planning on disappearing in silence without anyone noticing her. But the Grand Duke tells her that he plans to call the best tutors to teach her about proper etiquette and hopes that it would be a great memory to her. In the Grand Duke's office, his assistant announced that they found tutors for Aster. Talented and genius tutors who only accept one student per year. The Grand Duke tells his assistant that they'll pay 3 times the amount just to tutor Aster. Ben notices that everything related to Aster, Daewon never hesitates to spend money on. The assistant also mentions about the abuse in the temple, but to no luck. There are no incidents that have happened. However, the assistant finds a student named Raven, the Lady of Duke Breon, who is said to be the saint in the future. Also, if there are any abuses in the temple, it would be difficult to find out. The Grand Duke tells the assistant to keep investigating. He stood up and gazed out through the window, disappointed that he didn't catch the culprit as to why Aster is acting suicidal, and wondering what exactly happened to her in the temple. It's a lovely morning. Aster is in her room mending with crayons and paper without being worried. She can use expensive paper as much as she wants. How wonderful! This is what she truly deserves as a child. I'm so happy for her. While Aster is drawing, Dorothy goes up to her to check her. Dorothy is surprised about what she sees. Aster draws her. Aster gives her drawing as a present since Dorothy always helps her. Dorothy, being overwhelmed that Aster can draw, wants to tell the Grand Duke about Aster's talent and further compliments her work. No, she's not only cute but also talented. Dorothy, being noisy, catches the attention of Dennis, who went to Aster's room to investigate what happened. Dennis is annoyed when he arrives at Aster's room, which he addresses why Aster calls Judy brother but not him. Aster hesitates to tell Dennis at first, but when she tries, Dennis is flattered about what he heard and proceeds to ask Aster what books she wants to read. Dennis notices that Aster draws something which he requests Aster to draw him, which she refuses since she's not confident about her talent. Dorothy tells Aster to be confident, so Aster accepts Dennis's request. After a while, Aster puts so much concentration on her drawing while Dennis reads his books. Dennis steals a gaze on Aster when he notices that Aster's eyes turn to gold-like color, which Aster notices that Dennis is looking at her. Aster finishes her drawing, which makes Dennis flabbergasted since she has a talent that's worth bragging about. Dennis is so proud of Aster about her talent. All of a sudden, he calls his assistant, Delbert, to brag about his sister's work. For the first time, Aster hears compliments about her talent, and she'd like to receive more of it in the future. I hope she'll gradually overcome her traumas. There's so much more in life, and she deserves all of it. At that moment, Delbert, the butler, brings a message to the Grand Duke concerning the training of his army. Daewon expresses dissatisfaction as he believes everyone is too relaxed, emphasizing the importance of being prepared for war at all times, given the uncertainty of when it might strike. The Grand Duke inquires about Aster, and Delbert informs him that she's in the garden, engrossed in a drawing. Intrigued, the Grand Duke expresses his desire to have his portrait drawn by Aster as well. The Grand Duke strolls through his beautiful garden, accompanied by Delbert. As they walk, the Grand Duke notices Aster deeply engrossed in her drawing, showcasing a high level of concentration. Aster is focused on her drawing. She didn't even notice that the Grand Duke and Delbert are coming to see her. How cute. After a while, Aster contemplates what to draw when she's suddenly taken aback to find the Grand Duke at her side, his presence having gone unnoticed until that moment. Inquisitive, Aster asks when he arrived, and he promptly responds that he has been there for a short while, having known that Aster enjoys drawing in the garden. Expressing a desire to be drawn by Aster, the Grand Duke playfully teases her. Despite his request, Aster remains hesitant, lacking confidence in her artistic abilities. The Grand Duke attempts to convince her to draw a portrait of him, jokingly suggesting that if she refuses, he might seek out another artist for the task. Even the most dangerous person can handle himself well in front of the child without resorting to violence. He's such a good daddy. Aster, feeling a sense of possession, is determined to draw a portrait of the Grand Duke. Delbert, recalling that the Grand Duke generally avoids having his portrait done, makes a mental note of this exception specifically made for Aster. The Grand Duke persists, asking Aster if she truly wants to draw him. Though hesitant, Aster eventually accepts his request. As they are engrossed in their artistic endeavor, Pen, another man, walks into the garden and inquires about the Grand Duke's whereabouts from Delbert. Pen is taken aback to see the Grand Duke engaged in portrait drawing, as he recalls the Grand Duke's aversion to having his portrait done. The Grand Duke, hearing Pen's comment, shoots deathly stares at him, a signal that he must shut his mouth because Aster is listening. Delbert, however, praises Aster's artistic talent, leading Pen to marvel at the unexpected soft side of someone known as the world's demon. Curious about Aster's happiness while drawing, the Duke offers her the opportunity to learn anything she desires, expressing his desire to support her. Aster, feeling puzzled by the Grand Duke's kindness, continues her drawing, questioning if it will meet his expectations. Upon completing her artwork, Aster is uncertain about how the Grand Duke will react. To her surprise, the Grand Duke proudly displays her drawing to Pen and Delbert, eliciting astonishment due to its magnificence. The Grand Duke decides to showcase Aster's portrait at an upcoming dinner party in Tercia. He instructs Delbert to find an alternative fancy frame, expressing gratitude to Aster for her exceptional work. Aster reflects on her initial impression of the Grand Duke, recalling him as a dangerous and unmerciful duke. This stark contrast leaves her feeling awkward, but her heart is so full. The night unfolds with a touch of enchantment as guests from the kingdom stream into the opulent halls of the Grand Duke's mansion, each step echoing with the anticipation of the grand event orchestrated by the master of the house. As the guests shower praises upon the Grand Duke, his countenance betrays a subtle discontent, an undercurrent of emotion beneath the veneer of a gracious host. The Grand Duke's loyal assistant assures him that all preparations are complete. In response, the Grand Duke commands the gathering crowd to assemble, leaving the guests puzzled by the abrupt summons. Their curiosity deepens as an enigmatic object, concealed beneath a shroud, demands their attention. What could lie beneath? Is it a majestic painting or perhaps a treasure of considerable size? The collective imagination of the assembly ignites with speculation, a shared sense of wonder at the undisclosed revelation. With theatrical flair, the Grand Duke unveils the concealed object, revealing none other than a remarkable drawing crafted by Aster. A gasp of amazement ripples through the crowd as they witness the unveiling of this unexpected masterpiece. Compliments and admiration cascade like a waterfall, drowning the room in a symphony of awe. Some guests speculate about the artist, questioning whether renowned painters lent their skill to this exceptional creation. A discerning individual in the crowd detects an ethereal force emanating from the drawing, a divine power that sets it apart. In response to mounting inquiries, the Grand Duke discloses the extraordinary truth. His newly adopted daughter, Aster, is the artistic genius behind the masterpiece. The revelation ripples through the assembly, sparking conversations that spread like wildfire. Whispers circulate about the Grand Duke's recent adoption and the significance of this newfound family member. In a display of paternal pride, the Grand Duke emphasizes Aster's importance, declaring an imminent celebration in her honor. He emits an aura that commands both respect and a hint of fear, leaving the guests in awe of his formidable presence. I don't know about you guys, but his scary face is rather funny seeing how a gentle father he is to his children. Amidst the celestial glow of the moon and stars, the festivities continue to unfurl. On a moonlit balcony, the Grand Duke, taking a respite from the revelry, reflects on the serene beauty of the night. In a fortuitous turn, Benjamin, an observant guest, materializes, extending greetings to the Grand Duke. Their conversation weaves through the mysteries of the evening, with Benjamin expressing curiosity about the authenticity of Aster's drawing. As the discourse delves into the mystical, Benjamin contemplates the divine power that seems to radiate from Aster's creation. The notion that this energy suggests a future saint perplexes him, challenging preconceived notions about those with such divine potential. Just then, Benjamin desires a portrait, specifically for Noah, a soul burdened by the weight of suffering. The Grand Duke, wise and understanding, advises Benjamin to seek Aster's perspective, recognizing the profound importance of his daughter's unique insight since he doesn't want to force things on her. Meanwhile, within the confines of Aster's room, a magical flower unfurls its delicate petals, a phenomenon that piques Dorothy's curiosity. Aster attributes this unexpected bloom to her latent divine power, stirring a newfound caution within her. In the hushed quarters of her sanctuary, Aster resolves to guard the secret of her extraordinary abilities, the delicate balance between revelation and concealment becoming ever more precarious in the wake of this mesmerizing night. Beneath the vast blue sky, the temple hums with excitement as other children chat about Raphael, the potential saint in waiting. Their lively discussions echo through the corridors, creating an energetic buzz in the air. Raphael, with a sense of responsibility, heads towards Saint Cespia's room to deliver some medicine. But oh dear, there's a problem. A watchful priest stands guard at the door. The priest, appreciative of Raphael's devotion, praises her for having a heart as beautiful as a summer day. Surprisingly, the priest hands Raphael a potion, a mysterious liquid wrapped in an air of secrecy. Little does Raphael know, this potion might hold something wicked, a brew that could bring harm to Cespia, the person Raphael is supposed to be looking after. Unfazed by the hidden darkness in the potion, Raphael steps into Cespia's room. Inside, a poignant scene unfolds. Cespia lying in a delicate state, her life hanging by a fragile thread. The impending tragedy casts a heavy atmosphere, turning the once peaceful sanctuary into a place shadowed by sorrow. Raphael doesn't deserve to be a saint. She's selfish and abusive to the point where she has to kill or make someone's life miserable just to enjoy her own. In a quiet moment, Raphael's mind drifts back to memories of her father, recalling that the potion she now holds was brought by Duke Breon for the temple, especially for her. Time moves forward, and Raphael finds herself preparing Cespia's medicine, a concoction laced with the very poison that Duke Breon had provided. With a strained smile, she presents the chalice to Cespia, urging her to drink every drop. The facade of care and concern masks the sinister truth hidden within the potion. Meanwhile, in Aster's room, Dorothy is puzzled by the growing number of hyacinth seeds Aster has been requesting. Unbeknownst to Dorothy, Aster is consumed by worries about the impending awakening of the saint. She gazes at the flowers, contemplating their sensitivity to divine energy. Hyacinths, she believes, will be the quickest indicators of her progress. Out in the garden, Aster's plan unfolds as dozens of hyacinths burst into bloom, captivating the attention of the bewildered servants. Hidden behind a tree, Aster is taken aback by the unexpected abundance. Her intention was to discreetly gauge her progress, but the garden now boasts an extravagant display. Caught in this unexpected development, Aster grapples with conflicting emotions. Her plans to leave the kingdom before the temple discovers her are suddenly accelerated. Despite her resolve, she finds it challenging to depart abruptly. In the short time she spent within the mansion, she grew accustomed to the warmth and affection that enveloped her. There's a fear that leaving hastily might weaken her heart, a heart that found solace in playful moments and forged connections. Amidst her contemplation, a hand emerges, breaking the solitude. It's the Grand Duke, silently observing Aster from a caring distance. Unbeknownst to her, his concern for her well-being runs deep, ensuring she doesn't face injury or harm. In the garden, the Grand Duke notices Aster's bandaged forehead and politely asks if she's okay. Aster, downplaying any discomfort, assures him that it doesn't hurt at all. He really loves his adopted daughter. The Grand Duke, upset that the tree might hurt his daughter, contemplates whether he orders it cut down or not. Upon realizing it, he considers the novel emotions of having a daughter, asking himself if this is what it's like to have one. Then, noticing the hyacinths blooming, he suggests relocating for a private chat. In the garden patio, curious about Aster's divine power, the Grand Duke questions its strength. Aster, hesitating, briefly explains the hyacinths, reassured by the Grand Duke that it's not her fault. Shifting topics, the Grand Duke requests a portrait, balancing concern about Aster's involvement in imperial matters. Benjamin's earnest plea convinces him, and Aster agrees, stating it's not a tough task. Uncertain about the temple's condition, Aster seeks reassurance from the Grand Duke, who remains unsure. Determined, she convinces herself that everything will be fine. Arriving at the sanctuary, Aster follows the coachman's directions, discovering a cabin to draw for 2 hours. As she enters, the sanctuary is filled with divine powers. She wonders why such a place exists aside from the temple. But as she further goes in, a cold air emanates from a room where a child sleeps. Just then, she's filled with shock, realizing that she has met him before. If I'm not mistaken, this is the boy in her dreams, right? So he's a living character after all. Aster recognizes the boy, but struggles to recall where they met. As he peacefully sleeps, Aster prepares her art supplies, feeling a bit awkward about sketching someone secretly for the first time. Starting her drawing, Aster can't help but notice the boy's handsome features, a rarity comparable to Rafian's beauty. How can our princess concentrate with a face like that? While concentrating on her sketch, Aster ponders the familiarity, trying to remember where she encountered him before. Midway through her work, Aster realizes the boy's closed eyes hinder her accuracy. Hoping for a clearer memory, she contemplates the mystery of his identity. Feeling her energy wane, Aster, noticing the boy's exposed hand, decides to warm it. Holding his hand, she speaks to him, sharing her past loneliness at the temple. Expressing a wish for his well-being, she imparts a bit of her divine power as a blessing. After the blessing, Aster is drained, and suddenly the boy's hand grabs hers. Startled, she confesses she thought he was still asleep. The boy, now awake, questions Aster about her identity, and she hurriedly apologizes. The boy, with dark brown, gorgeous eyes, fully awakens, bringing an end to the mysterious slumber. Oh my, he's even more handsome with those eyes! Aster, caught off guard by the boy's sudden awakening, is uncertain about how to handle the situation. The boy demands an explanation for her presence, prompting Aster to quickly respond that she was commissioned to create his portrait. She apologizes sincerely, emphasizing her intent to respect his privacy. Aster clarifies that she didn't mean any disrespect and only wished to silently capture his likeness. Her frustration arises from being unable to see his eyes, hindering her ability to complete the portrait with accuracy. The mysterious boy before her, whose name she has yet to learn, exhibits a strange mixture of curiosity and delight at her presence. His question lingers in the air, a curious blend of uncertainty and anticipation. Is this a mere figment of his imagination or a tangible reality? The atmosphere is laden with an unspoken tension as Aster attempts to extract her hand gently from the boy's grasp. His refusal to let go creates an unusual connection, a silent understanding between two individuals who, moments ago, were just mere strangers. In the midst of this silent communion, a smile graces the boy's face, casting a warm glow that leaves Aster momentarily flustered. His inquiry about her purpose for being there seems innocent yet loaded with underlying curiosity. Aster, with a sense of humility, acknowledges that her task is to capture the essence of his eyes on canvas, a mission bestowed upon her by the Grand Duke himself. The boys' joyous assumption that Benjamin, a familiar figure in their lives, orchestrated this rendezvous brings a unique charm to the encounter. It's as if the threads of fate have woven them together, guided by an invisible hand that connects lives in unexpected ways. Aster, however, gently corrects his assumption, emphasizing that her journey into the cabin was solely at the behest of the Grand Duke. The revelation seems to bring a mixture of surprise and satisfaction to the boy, who now sees her presence as a direct favor from the highest echelons of authority. As the conversation unfolds, the boy suggests a return visit, inviting Aster to resume her artistic endeavor next time. He then closes his eyes as if to test Aster's patience, much to her apparent confusion. He is so innocent and sweet in her dreams, so it's kind of surprising that he's actually playful. And how come the boy can communicate with her through dreams? As Aster navigates this mysterious encounter, the story unfolds with hidden layers waiting to be revealed. What truths will Aster uncover in her artistic journey, and how will the boy's presence shape her destiny? We'll stop here for today, guys. Yes, I know you want more. Don't forget to ask for the next part in the comment section. Thank you guys for watching and for your support. Please subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot. Till the next one.